Robert the doll. There are objects that seem to stare at us from the darkest corner of our childhood fears. Dolls with their fixed glass eyes and painted smiles can go from playmates to incarnations of the sinister in the blink of an eye. But most are just that, inanimate objects. There is one, however, one that resides under the tropical sun of Key West, Florida, in the protective gloom of a museum. A doll that has amassed such a terrifying reputation that people write him letters begging for forgiveness. His name is Robert, and his story is a warning. It all begins in the early 20th century, in atmospheric and then isolated Key West. A boy named Robert Eugene Otto, whom everyone called Gene, received a gift. A doll nearly 3 feet tall, stuffed with straw, dressed in a little sailor suit. His eyes are dark buttons, expressionless, or perhaps expressive in a way we don't understand. His mouth, a simple seam, seems to form a strange grimace, almost a smirk. But who gave Gene this doll? This is where the story gets murky. The most widespread and sinister version speaks of a maid from the Bahamas who worked for the Otto family. A woman who, it is said, practiced voodoo and black magic. Unhappy with the family, or perhaps with Gene himself, she gave him the doll. Not as a toy, but as a vessel, a conduit for a curse, for a vengeful spirit or worse. He gave the boy a companion with dark secrets sewn into its straw interior. Gene became obsessed with the doll. He carried it everywhere. He gave it his own name, Robert. The boy began to be called by his middle name, Gene, while the doll took on the main identity. He would talk to Robert for hours in his room. Gene's parents listened to the conversations through the door. They would hear their son's voice, and then they would hear another voice, a lower, different, guttural voice, answering from the bedroom. Soon, the strange phenomena began. Objects flying around the room, furniture overturned, mutilated toys. When Gene's parents came in furious, they found the boy huddled in a corner, terrified, pointing to the doll sitting in a chair or on the bed. "Robert did it," he would sob. "It was Robert." At first, they dismissed it as childish pranks, like an imaginary friend to blame. But the incidents became more frequent, more violent. The whispers in the night, the feeling of being watched, the muffled giggles that seemed to come from the doll when no one was looking. Robert's shadow began to grow. Gene grew up, became an artist, inherited the family home. But Robert never quite left. Despite the fear he inspired in him, Gene seemed strangely attached to the doll from his childhood. After Gene's death in 1974, the house was sold. Robert was relegated to the attic. The new owners, the Reuters family, soon discovered they were not alone. They heard little footsteps running around upstairs in the locked attic, childish giggles echoing in the empty corridors at night. And the scariest thing, I found Robert in different places. He would be dropped off in the attic and appear sitting in a rocking chair by the downstairs window, his button eyes fixed on the street. They swore that his expression would change, that the stitched grimace would sometimes look like a smirk, sometimes a grimace of anger. The terror Robert had inflicted on Gene had not died with him. He had simply waited, patient, in the darkness of the attic. Finally, the terrified Reuter family donated Robert to the East Martello Museum in Key West in 1994. They thought they would finally get rid of him. But Robert is not an object that can simply be put away and forgotten. It now resides in a glass case, surrounded by letters, miles of letters. They are not fan letters. They are letters of apology. Because Robert's legend didn't end at the museum. Perhaps it just got stronger, more public. The doll is said to retain its supernatural powers. Museum employees and visitors report unexplained glitches in the cameras and electronic equipment near his display case. Some feel sudden temperature changes, others an oppressive feeling of discomfort or irrational fear when looking at it. And then there's the most important rule. the warning that everyone should take seriously. If you want to take Robert's picture, you must first ask him, politely. And you must wait for a signal, a slight nod of the head, some say, though no one knows for sure how he responds. If you take his picture without permission, or if you tease him, you risk his curse. And Robert's curse, according to the stories, is real and terrible. They tell of visitors who suffered unexplained car accidents shortly after leaving the museum, of relationships that broke up, of regretful financial ruins, of strange and persistent illnesses, of a run of bad luck so relentless it could only have a supernatural origin. The connection, for the victims, is clear. They disrespected Robert. Hence the letters. They come from all over the world. Desperate people writing to the doll, asking for forgiveness. Robert, I'm sorry I laughed. Please stop this. Robert, I didn't mean to offend you. Please, give me back my luck. Robert, I'm sorry I took your picture without asking. My life has fallen apart. Please forgive me. Letters lining the walls around his display case, a chilling testament to the fear he continues to inspire. What is Robert really? Is he the result of a voodoo curse cast over a century ago? Is he a vessel for the spirit of a child, or for something much older and darker? Could he be a tulpa of sorts, an entity created and nurtured by Gene Otto's intense belief and fear, and now sustained by the attention of millions? Or is he simply a creepy old doll, whose legend has gotten out of control through suggestion and coincidence? No one knows for sure. But as Robert stands in his display case at the East Martello Museum, his button eyes fixed on the void, dressed in his sailor suit, holding his weathered stuffed lion, doubt lingers. That stitched grimace seems to observe, seems to know. Perhaps he hears the conversations around him. Perhaps it reads the letters of apology. Maybe you enjoy the fear it generates. So, if you ever visit Key West and get close to meeting the island's most infamous celebrity, remember the warning. Look at him if you want, but do it with respect. And if you take out your camera, be sure to ask permission first, because you never know what might offend a century-old doll with a reputation for eternal spite. You never know if Robert is listening and waiting.